Mahalo, Mr. Chair, and aloha, Secretary Austin, General Milley. Mr. McCord, thank you for your service. Mahalo for your testimony today. I want to focus my questions on the Pacific Deterrence Initiative, the importance of those U.S. relationships with our allies and partners in the Indo-Pacific region, and the changing nature of the future conflicts. Secretary Austin, I applaud you for showcasing America's commitment to the Indo-Pacific region by making your first overseas visit with your trip to Japan, and South Korea, and India, and a brief stop in the Hawaiian Islands. I'm sorry I missed you. But as we are now discussing the FY22 defense budget, which I appreciate the President's budget and the investment in the PDI, I also think as China becomes more aggressive in the region, the United States needs to be more aggressive regarding our critical investments in the PDI. And there are things that are not in that budget, in the unfunded, like the Guam Defense System, the Homeland Radar Hawaii, the TACMOR in Palau, that I think we need to take a look at, and so that we can fully fund that PDI and fully meet the objectives that we discussed today, which is one of those national instruments of power, which is our military deterrence and the strength of that deterrence in the Indo-Pacific region. So as a member of the Pacific Islands Caucus, I want to continue to call attention to Oceania and the Pacific Islands region. China regularly provides military training in the Pacific Islands region. They have been broadening their reach throughout the Pacific. They actively cultivate those relationships with senior defense officials. We know what their investments that they've been doing in Guam for a number of, in Western Samoa for a number of decades. And as those defense region officials from China go to the different Pacific Island regions, they get full military honors, such as in Papua New Guinea, under their Defense Force Chief of Defense visit in 2016. Under President Xi, senior PLA officials have held bilateral meetings with their counterparts in Papua New Guinea and Tonga and Fiji. And so my first question to you, sir, is given the increasing military-to-military engagements in the Pacific Islands region, especially Papua New Guinea, Fiji, and Tonga, many of those small islands listed on the unfunded Section 1251, will the DoD plan similar high-level engagements to strengthen those relationships with our counterparts in those small island nations in Oceania to deter China from extending their reach throughout the Western Pacific and into the Eastern Pacific?
As you pointed out, Congressman, the Indo-Pacific is important to us, and my very first trip was out to the region. And I would just say that China is engaging a number of different countries and with economic
carrots.
Yeah, and well, we have something that China doesn't have. We have allies and we have partners. And if you consider the Australias, the Japans, the Koreas of the world, there is tremendous capacity in our allies and partners. I think the Pacific Islands are absolutely important, and you'll see us continue to engage various countries in the region there, and to make sure that where we can, we're increasing our capacity and accessibility and strengthening the relationships. But we far, in a way, exceed any capability that China would have in terms of partner or allied capability, and we're going to continue to strengthen what we have.
What are your thoughts then on expanding those relationships that we currently have or previously had, for an example, in the Philippines? We had robust bases at Clark. Of course, we have a presence in Subic. In Singapore, we have Changi. We have Utapao, and in Thailand. What are your thoughts on expanding those relationships, specifically the Philippines?
Absolutely the right thing to do. And, I talked with the Minister of Defense in the Philippines a couple of times. We would look to expand our footprint and strengthen our relationship as we go forward. I'll continue to work on that personally. I think it's really, really important. So.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I will yield back